Right now, as you read this, there is a possibility, a genuinely terrifying possibility, that your phone is not entirely yours. Not your camera, not your microphone, not your messages, not even your silence. There are applications living inside your device that were never invited, never announced, and never asked for permission. They look harmless. Some of them look useful. A few of them look like things you actually wanted. But underneath that surface, underneath that clean icon and that smooth interface, something is feeding. Something is watching. Something is transmitting everything you do to a server you will never see, controlled by people you will never know. And the worst part? Most people will finish reading this and still not check their phone. There's a specific kind of threat that cybersecurity professionals lose sleep over. Not the dramatic, explosive kind of attack that makes headlines and triggers government alerts. The threats that keep researchers awake at 3 a.m. are the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones that do not announce themselves with a crash or freeze or a warning message. The most dangerous digital weapons in the world today are the ones that work perfectly, the ones that let you scroll, laugh, search, and live your life, while in the background, in the silent spaces between your taps and swipes, they are stripping your digital existence down to its bones. What most people are not seeing is that the conversation about phone security has fundamentally changed in 2025 and 2026. This is no longer about some vague hypothetical hacker in a basement running crude phishing scams. What has emerged, what researchers have now documented, cataloged, and in some cases barely begun to understand, is an industrial-scale surveillance economy that runs directly through the device sitting in your pocket. The phone you use to call your family, the phone you use to check your bank account, the phone you use to document your life. That device has become the most valuable intelligence asset in human history, and an entire underground industry has developed around the single goal of getting inside it without you ever finding out. Here's where it gets worse. The most dangerous versions of these parasitic applications did not come from shady third-party websites or illegal marketplaces on the dark web. They came from the Google Play Store, the official app store, the one you were told to trust, the one with the green checkmark and the automated security scanning. McAfee researchers uncovered an Android rootkit campaign dubbed Operation No Voice that used seemingly benign Google Play apps to gain full control of devices, inject code into every app, and steal sensitive data, including WhatsApp account sessions. Read that again slowly. These apps were on Google Play. They had download counts, they had star ratings, some of them had user reviews praising their performance, and the entire time, they were methodically dismantling the privacy of every person who installed them. The apps carrying this malicious payload included cleaners, image galleries, and games. They required no suspicious permissions and provided the promised functionality. That is the masterstroke of modern surveillance architecture. You get what you wanted. The cleaner clears your cache. The gallery displays your photos. The game responds to your inputs. Everything works as advertised. But beneath that working surface, the parasite has already burrowed in, already established contact with its command server, already begun the slow and systematic process of extracting everything it can reach. Think about what that means. You downloaded a photo gallery app because you wanted to organize your memories. And while you were organizing your memories, something else was cataloging them for someone you have never met. This is not a hypothetical scenario designed to generate fear. According to McAfee's report, the campaign exploited known Android vulnerabilities patched between 2016 and 2021, primarily targeting older or unpatched devices, and collectively amassed at least 3 million downloads. 2.3 million downloads. Not 2,000, not 200,000. 2.3 million human beings who trusted a digital storefront and paid for that trust with their privacy. The mechanics of how Operation No Voice actually works are something that most mainstream coverage glosses over, because the technical reality is far more disturbing than any simplified headline can capture. After launching an infected app, the malware tries to obtain root access on the device by exploiting old Android vulnerabilities. After being installed via one of those 50 malicious apps, the malware collects a wide variety of device information, hardware details, the phone's current Android version and patch level, a list of installed apps, and root status. With this info in hand, No Voice reaches out to a command and control server operated by the hackers, doing this every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds. While you sleep, while you work. While you're in a meeting or having dinner or putting your children to bed. Every 60 seconds, your device is checking in with a server operated by unknown actors, reporting on its status and receiving new instructions. And this is where everything changes. Because root access is not just a technical term. Root access means the malware has reached the deepest layer of your operating system, the layer that controls everything else. It can inject itself into the Android zygote process, a core system process that launches every app on your device, meaning it can give bad actors broad control and visibility over your entire system, infect every app installed on the device, install any apps from APK files, and give them any available permissions. Every application you open after the malware achieves root access is potentially compromised. Your banking app, your messaging apps, your email, your health tracking app, the authentication app you use to secure your other accounts. All of them simultaneously penetrated, simultaneously reporting, and you feel nothing. You see nothing. Your phone runs normally. But here's where it gets worse. With most malware, if you discover it, you factory reset your device. That is the standard advice. Wipe the phone, start clean, problem solved. However, with no voice, that will not work because the malware burrows into the one area a system wipe cannot touch. No voice establishes root access by exploiting older vulnerabilities. And according to a blog post from McAfee, its security researchers observed 22 different exploits being used. 22 different attack vectors. Not one strategy, not one vulnerability. 22 separate techniques deployed dynamically based on the specific weaknesses of your specific device. This is not the work of opportunistic amateurs. This is the work of a sophisticated operation with resources, patience, and a very specific endgame. Now, zoom out for a moment, because Operation No Voice is not an isolated incident. It is one chapter in a story that has been building for years, accelerating with each passing month, and branching in directions that are far more personal and far more disturbing than a rootkit campaign. Parallel to the rise of rootkit malware designed to steal data at scale, there is another category of parasitic app that targets something more intimate: your relationships, your domestic life, your sense of safety inside your own home. The industry calls them stalkerware. The Electronic Frontier Foundation calls them a crisis. And what researchers have found in 2025 makes both of those characterizations feel like understatements. Stalkerware refers to commercially available apps designed to be installed covertly on another person's device to exfiltrate data from that device without their knowledge. In 2025, EFF and AV Comparatives tested the most popular antivirus products for Android to see how well they detect the most popular stalkerware products. The results of that testing revealed something uncomfortable about the security ecosystem that most people depend on to protect them. Google Play Protect and Trend Micro had the lowest detection rates in the 2025 test, at 53% and 59% respectively. The poor performance of Google Play Protect is unsurprising because it is the antivirus solution on so many Android phones by default. Some stalkerware includes specific instructions to disable detection by Google Play Protect as part of the installation process. The free security tool that comes built into hundreds of millions of Android phones, the one most people never even think about because they assume it is quietly protecting them, is specifically targeted by stalkerware developers who have learned how to neutralize it before it can raise an alarm. The defender has been studied, its weaknesses have been mapped, and the attack has been engineered around them. Stalkerware can monitor almost everything you do on your phone, including photos and videos you take, websites you visit, messages you send and receive, your call history, and your location. It can allow someone to turn on the webcam or microphone, take screenshots, see activity on third-party apps such as Snapchat or WhatsApp, and intercept, forward, or record phone calls. Once installed, it runs in stealth mode without any notification or identifying activity and is difficult to detect or remove. The person monitoring you is not breaking into your phone in the traditional sense. They are not watching a loading screen or a command line. They are sitting on a different device, looking at a clean, organized dashboard that displays your life in real time. Your location on a map, your messages laid out in readable threads, your call history time-stamped and organized, your photos cataloged and accessible. You have no indicator light, no warning notification, no system alert. Your phone behaves normally. Your life continues. And somewhere, someone is reading it like a book. The names that have emerged from cybersecurity investigations in 2025 deserve specific attention because they are not obscure underground tools. In early and mid-2025, Spizy, CocoSpy, and Spyek were compromised, with data leaks affecting millions, including victim data. Some services went offline afterward. The victims in this case were doubly victimized. First, someone installed surveillance software on their devices without their knowledge. Then, the servers holding all the data extracted from their devices were breached by a third party, meaning their private messages, their location history, their photographs, were exposed not just to the original stalker, but potentially to whoever found the vulnerability first. The bug allowed anyone to access the personal data, messages, photos, call logs, and more, exfiltrated from any phone or tablet compromised by CocoSpy and Spyek. The bug also exposed the email addresses of the people who signed up to CocoSpy and Spyek with the intention of planting the app on someone's device to covertly monitor them. So here's the full picture. You have victims whose private lives were recorded without consent. You have perpetrators whose identities were then exposed by the same security failures that made their surveillance possible. And sitting in the middle of this wreckage is an industry that markets these tools as parental monitoring solutions, as employee accountability software, as responsible relationship management, while simultaneously advertising their stealth capabilities to an audience that knows exactly what they plan to use them for. The Truth Spy's vendor warns that people must obtain consent before installing the app on someone else's phone. However, it also specifically advertises stealth mode, which makes it completely invisible to users on phones and tablets where it's installed. The legal disclaimer and the marketing pitch exist in direct contradiction. One says, "Get consent." The other says, "They will never know." That is not a parental monitoring tool. That is a surveillance instrument wrapped in legal language thin enough to see through. According to informed sources in the cybersecurity research community, the most sophisticated version of this problem is not even the stalkerware that requires someone to physically handle your phone. The frontier of surveillance technology has moved beyond that requirement, because the most dangerous thing a malicious actor can obtain is not access to your device, it is access to your credentials, your username, your password, and increasingly, your biometric data. Beyond privacy concerns, the FBI highlights the potential for hidden malware in foreign developed apps. These malicious programs can bypass user permissions, exploit system vulnerabilities, and even install backdoors that give attackers deeper control over devices. This threat is particularly pronounced on Android devices due to their more open ecosystem, which allows users to install apps from outside official stores. The real story is that we are living through a period in which the attack surface for surveillance has expanded to include virtually every category of app that humans use daily. It is not just the obvious suspects, the flashlight apps that request microphone access, the free VPNs that route all your traffic through opaque servers in untraceable jurisdictions. The mobile security firm's Imperium discovered a malware campaign targeting users of both iPhones and Android phones with over 250 malicious apps spread via 80 or more malicious domains. Once installed on a vulnerable smartphone, the apps were used to download a dangerous info-stealing malware capable of stealing contacts and photos, with the hackers then threatening to extort victims by leaking their private information and photos to their contacts or online if their demands were not met. 250 malicious apps, 80 malicious domains, and an extortion model that turns your own private photographs into weapons aimed at your reputation, your relationships, and your psychological well-being. What most people are not seeing is the economic architecture that makes this possible. There's a reason these operations are sophisticated, well-resourced, and continuously evolving. Stolen data is extraordinarily valuable. A single smartphone contains enough personal information to compromise someone's financial accounts, their professional identity, their personal relationships, and their legal standing, all simultaneously. The underground market for phone data does not look like the criminal enterprise it is. It looks like a services industry with pricing tiers and customer support and refund policies, because that is exactly what it has become. Here is something the mainstream conversation about phone security almost never addresses. The problem is not limited to third-party apps you downloaded impulsively. Kaspersky researchers noted a backdoor called Keenadu that can inject itself into the Android Zygote process, a core system process that launches every app on your device. Keenadu is a fully functional backdoor that provides the attackers with unlimited control over the victim's device, Kaspersky told Bleeping Computer, adding that it can infect every app installed on the device, install any apps from APK files, and give them any available permissions. This is firmware-level compromise. This is malware that arrived on the device before the user ever turned it on, but embedded in the manufacturing supply chain of budget Android devices, meaning the threat vector is not a bad download decision. It is the act of purchasing a specific device at a specific price point. Think about what that means for the economics of surveillance. Budget Android phones are disproportionately owned by people in lower income brackets, people who are, in many contexts, already more vulnerable to exploitation. The cheapest device on the shelf may carry the highest security cost. That is not an accident. That is a calculated targeting strategy. Now let us talk about what you can actually do, because information without action is just anxiety with a longer runtime. The signs that a parasitic app has established itself on your device are often subtle, but they are not invisible once you know what to look for. Common indicators that, taken together, may point to spyware include unusually high battery or data usage, the device running noticeably hot due to constant background activity, unexpected permissions in apps that should not need them, such as accessibility or draw over other apps, and new device administrator profiles, or VPN configurations that you did not set up. Each of these symptoms, in isolation, can have an innocent explanation. A warm phone might just be running a demanding game. High data usage might be a streaming app buffering in the background. But when these signals appear together, especially when they appear without an obvious cause, that combination is what investigators call a signature. And this particular signature has appeared in documented surveillance cases repeatedly enough to warrant serious attention. The process of checking your own device is something more people need to understand as a basic digital literacy skill, not an advanced technical exercise reserved for cybersecurity professionals. On Android, this begins with examining your list of installed applications, not just the icons visible on your home screen, but the complete list accessible through your phone's settings. Android devices offer a more organized app drawer. If you press and hold a suspicious application, from the pop-up, you can click Uninstall to get rid of it. You can also find hidden apps through the Settings menu, where a Hide Apps option shows all applications that do not display an icon on your home screen. Hidden apps are not a neutral feature in this context. A hidden app is, by definition, an app that does not want to be found. And while there are legitimate reasons for an application to run without a persistent icon, the presence of unrecognized hidden applications on your device is a red flag significant enough to warrant immediate investigation. Beyond the app list, the device administrator settings on Android deserve specific attention. Stalkerware frequently registers itself as a device administrator because that status grants elevated permissions and makes the application much harder to uninstall through normal means. If you see a device administrator listed in your settings that you do not recognize, one that appeared without you deliberately installing and authorizing a security or management application, that is a serious warning. Permissions also deserve scrutiny beyond the initial installation moment. Checking Play Protect settings by enabling improved harmful app detection, opening the Play Store, going to your profile, selecting Play Protect, and turning on both scan apps and improve harmful app detection enables Google Play Protect to also disable or remove harmful apps. It is not a perfect solution. We have established that Google Play Protect has documented blind spots, but enabling its maximum sensitivity still represents a meaningful layer of defense. On iPhone, the architecture of iOS creates a different threat profile. Apple's sandboxing model prevents most forms of the deep system access that Android rootkits exploit. But the iPhone is not impenetrable. In the case of iPhones and iPads, stalkerware can tap into a person's device data stored in Apple's iCloud, which requires using their stolen Apple account credentials. This means that the vulnerability on iOS is frequently not the device itself. It is the account tied to the device. If someone has access to your Apple ID credentials, they potentially have access to your iCloud backups, your location history through Find My, your messages, and your photos, all without ever touching your phone. The first line of defense on iOS is therefore account security. A strong, unique password for your Apple ID, two-factor authentication enabled, and a regular audit of which devices are signed into your account. For both platforms, there's a layer of behavioral security that technology alone cannot replace. Many people put themselves at risk by clicking on unknown links or giving out too many permissions. One simple tap can secretly install harmful software. The permission dialog that appears when you install a new application is not a formality. It is a contract. When a flashlight app requests access to your contacts, that is not a technical requirement. It is an attempted data grab. When a wallpaper application requests permission to access your microphone, that is not a design oversight. It is a choice someone made, and that choice reveals intent. According to informed sources familiar with the security research community's current priorities, the next evolution of this threat is already underway, and it involves artificial intelligence in ways that will make current detection methods look primitive. The same AI infrastructure that has transformed legitimate software development has given malware authors new tools for evasion. The ability to generate unique code signatures for each infected device, making pattern-based detection nearly impossible, and the ability to mimic legitimate network behavior so precisely that traffic analysis tools cannot distinguish malicious communication from normal app activity. The Android espionage platform Mandrake, which started its activities in 2016 and was first discovered in 2020, evolved into a stronger version that can evade Google Play checks, making detection harder. 5 new apps with the spyware were available on Google Play from 2022 to 2024, were collectively downloaded over 32,000 times, and until the day of discovery, none of them were flagged as malicious by any antivirus provider. None of them. Not a single security scanner across the entire period these apps were available identified them as threats. They existed in plain sight, wearing the credibility of the Play Store as camouflage, and they survived precisely because they were sophisticated enough to understand what detection looks for and to avoid triggering it. This is not chaos. This is strategy. The people building these systems are not making mistakes. They understand the security ecosystem at least as well as the defenders do, and in many cases significantly better, because understanding the defense is the prerequisite for defeating it. The arms race between surveillance software and detection capability is accelerating, and the honest assessment from researchers who spend their careers studying this landscape is that the gap between what attackers can do and what defenders can reliably catch is not closing, it is widening. There's a question that sits beneath all of this that almost no one is willing to ask directly. If the Google Play Store, the most scrutinized, most resourced, most monitored app distribution platform in the world, cannot consistently prevent malicious applications from reaching users, and if the default antivirus solution running on the majority of Android phones has documented failure rates when confronted with specifically engineered stalkerware, then what exactly is the security guarantee that users have been sold? What is the promise that was made when you were told that as long as you downloaded apps from official sources and kept your software updated, you were protected? The real answer, the one that does not appear in press releases or product documentation, is that the guarantee was always probabilistic, never absolute. Security has always been a spectrum, not a binary state, but the gap between the promise and the reality has never been wider than it is right now, and the consequences of that gap have never been more intimate, more personal, or more irreversible. Your location data, once extracted, cannot be unextracted. Your private messages, once copied to a remote server, cannot be recalled. Your photographs, once uploaded to an infrastructure you do not control, exist in that infrastructure indefinitely, subject to whatever security practices, or lack thereof, the operator maintains. If you use stalkerware, you endanger not only others, but also your own data, as the 2025 breaches of Spizy, CocoSpy, and Spyac demonstrated when data from millions of accounts was exposed, including the data of the perpetrators who installed the apps in the first place. The surveillance tool became a surveillance liability. The watchers became the watched. And caught in the wreckage of that irony were millions of ordinary people whose private lives had been extracted, stored, and then left unprotected by the very infrastructure built to exploit them. The question that does not yet have a clean answer is this: how many of those 3 million people who downloaded apps carrying the no-voice rootkit know what happened to their devices? How many of them received a notification, a warning, an explanation? How many of them have had conversations with family members, medical professionals, lawyers, or employers using phones that were, or still are, transmitting every word to a command and control server? How many people reading this right now have a device that has been compromised and simply has not yet made itself known? The nature of the most dangerous surveillance tools is that they do not reveal themselves. They do not crash your phone or drain your battery in obvious ways. They are engineered for invisibility, built for longevity, and optimized for the quiet, continuous extraction of everything you do, say, and send. The most effective parasite does not kill its host. It lives alongside the host indefinitely, taking only enough to sustain itself, giving the host no reason to seek treatment. And here is the uncertainty that no one can resolve yet. The malware campaigns that have been discovered and documented. Operation No Voice, the Spizy and CocoSpy breaches, the 250 app Zimperium campaign, the Mandrake evolution. These are the ones researchers found. These are the operations that made mistakes visible enough to be caught. The question that keeps investigators awake at night is not about what they have found. It is about what they have not found yet. About the operation running right now that has not made a detectable error. About the infrastructure that has been built with enough sophistication to remain entirely below the threshold of current detection. About the data that is being harvested, transmitted, and stored from devices that will never receive a security alert, never be flagged by a scan, and never generate the kind of anomaly that triggers investigation. Your phone knows things about you that no other object in your life knows. It knows where you sleep. It knows who you call at midnight. It knows what you search for when no one is watching. It knows the cadence of your day, the geography of your life, the network of your relationships. It holds the things you have said in private and the things you have chosen never to say at all. It is the most intimate object most people own, and it is the most targeted object in the history of surveillance. The apps are already out there. Some of them have already been removed from stores. Some of them are still being discovered. And some of them, the ones written by people who understood what they were doing well enough to avoid every current detection method, have not been found yet. The silence from those applications is not reassurance. The silence is the point. The silence is how they survive. What comes next is the part no analyst can write with certainty. Whether regulation catches up, and whether detection technology closes the gap. Whether the economic incentives driving surveillance software development are ever disrupted in a meaningful way. Whether the next major breach will be larger than 3 million devices, or whether we will look back at that number one day as the moment before everything escalated beyond what we currently have language to describe. The only thing that is clear right now is that your phone is a contested space. And the contest has been going on longer than most people know, run by actors more capable than most people imagine, with stakes far higher than a stolen password or an exposed email address. Something much larger is building, and most people will not realize it until long after it has already arrived.